Hello and welcome back to another edition of Nifty Notions. I'm Jason.
And I'm Andrew. And today, Jason, I'm going to be talking about the biggest myths that Americans have about Australia and Australians.
Oh, right.
And I'm going to be tapping in to you and your knowledge because you are unique amongst the people on this stage in that you were born in America.
Yes.
You have an American father.
I do.
You have an English mother. Mm-hmm. You did live in England for much of your life.
Yes.
And you were educated, your university education for both your degrees
Is in America.
was in America. So you have a unique insight.
And I worked in America.
And you worked in America. So I have travelled to America many times.
Mm-hmm.
I have worked with Americans. I have done business with American companies and Americans. So I do come from that angle, but I don't have quite the insight that you would have. I'm talking as an Australian more than an American who is an Australian as well.
I can see both.
You can see both, exactly. Yeah. So, one of the biggest myths that I think any American would have, if they knew anything about Australia in the first place, is that everything here wants to kill us.
That's so true. My friends who I knew at university, the Americans who wanted to come and see me in Sydney, they'd phone me up and go, I'm looking forward to seeing you, but then I saw a National Geographic documentary on TV and it came across the 10 deadliest snakes, the 10 deadliest spiders, and everything wants to kill you in Australia.
Yes.
So I'm a bit worried now. And you have to go through the process of explaining where they are, and you don't come across them on a daily basis, and you have to go and find these things if you really want to experience them.
Yep. And that is true. Like, we do have pretty much the deadliest spider in the world. Well, the one that kills the most people.
Yeah.
Rather than the most venomous. It's the second most venomous, and that happens to be the Sydney funnel web. We are in Sydney in Australia, and it's a spider that...
Sorry.
It's a spider that you will find funnel webs all over Australia pretty much, but the deadliest one's in Sydney. But I'm 60 years old, I only saw one for the very first time last week, which is purely coincidental with this.
Yeah.
So you can avoid these. Snakes, I have seen a ton of snakes. But, you know, usually you sort of catch it in the corner of your eye and you can see something moving. You look at it and you can see looks like a branch that's moving on the ground, and you figure out pretty quickly that's a snake.
And they don't want to come near you, really.
No, and same with the spiders, essentially. Nothing wants to really come near you.
Yeah.
On land anyway.
Yeah.
Unless it's a crocodile and you're on the edge of the water.
That's true. Or you're in the water and there's a shark.
Shark, then it does want to come near you. Okay, yeah, so maybe that's true. But look, that is true for any part of the world where you're talking about coastal regions that are especially warm.
Yeah.
You're going to get shark attacks. I mean, I saw that documentary that Steven Spielberg made. What was it called? Jaws. That was Big Shark in America.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Rather big shark.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't a documentary, but whatever. It doesn't. Don't let truth get in the way of a good story. But there are shark attacks everywhere. In Florida, they've got crocodiles. Not crocodiles. They do have crocodiles and alligators and caimans, and they can attack people and potentially kill people. We have crocodiles that absolutely can kill you and will kill you because they are hungry buggers, and sharks likewise. But you know, the fatality rate's pretty low.
It is true.
And also the interaction rate is even lower if you consider how many people go to the Sydney beaches. Sydney is blessed with having beaches from north to south. And there are tens of thousands, if not more than that, on hot summer day, people swimming there, and our fatality rate is incredibly low, or even our injury rate.
Yeah.
So,
and the drop bears aren't at the beach, so there's not a problem there.
No, drop bears aren't at the beach, but if you do go into the bush and you are a foreign visitor to our land, you might want to watch out for the drop bears. We have a video that does cover drop bears. It covers a whole lot of other things, like what the deadliest things in Australia are, because this video is about a whole lot of myths to do with Australia, not just what's deadly. But if you want to see what's deadly, including drop bears, if you are foreign, you do really want to know that, the link's up there. Right, so we're kind of not too worried about that sort of stuff, really. I mean, we all know that it's all, but we're not. If we're not worried, you shouldn't be worried. It's a bit like I've always said: when you're in a plane, when the cabin crew start worrying about the noises and what the plane's doing, that's when you worry.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So when the locals are worried, you can worry. The other myth is it's blisteringly hot and always hot. So there is a big chunk of Australia in the tropics. So yeah, that is hot. It's humid. It's got mosquitoes and all the insects and animals that come with that. But as you move further south, you've got Tasmania, an island Tasmania, which is right at the southern part of Australia, and it's a very cool climate.
It is.
Even in summertime. We are now approaching our summertime, and they had snow down in Tasmania just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And they constantly get hit with cold weather. In Sydney, we can get cold in wintertime. We don't get snow in Sydney. We don't really get sub-zero temperatures in some of the outer suburbs we do. I can remember when I was working out in the outer suburbs of Sydney and driving there and getting to work at about 8 in the morning after spending an hour in traffic from living near the coast, that I would drive into the car park, and for the people who were working overnight in the factory, there was frost on the windscreens.
Yeah.
So they can get sub-zero just out in the outer suburbs, but most of Sydney doesn't even approach sub-zero temperatures. When I say zero, I'm talking about Celsius. So let's talk about, convert that to freezing, sub-freezing temperatures. We do get pretty hot in summertime, and it's probably 3 months in a place like Sydney, 3 months of cool to cold weather, 3 to 6 months of warm weather, and 3 months of uncomfortable hot weather.
Yeah.
So, but it's different all over Australia. Look at on the western side of Australia, there's a city like Perth. It's just hot.
Yeah.
That is hot. Yeah. And Melbourne's probably got, four seasons.
Yes.
Sydney kind of has hot and cool. Melbourne has 4 seasons. Again, they don't get snow in Melbourne. But a place like Canberra, which is the capital of Australia, has the greatest variation of temperature for capital cities in Australia.
Okay.
Because it is inland, it does get very hot in summer, and it can get very humid because there's a man-made lake right in the middle of Canberra. It's not a very big city, and it can get quite hot, humid at the same time. But in wintertime, they can get snow. We're talking about maybe 1 or 2 days every couple of years. But below freezing very often. I mean, I can remember driving through Canberra once on the way to the snowfields. It was -7 driving through Canberra in the morning.
Wow,
so,
-7.
Yeah,
Good grief.
So that's pretty common.
That's cold.
Yeah.
-7 on the centigrade scale.
That's right, -7 centigrade, which is
20?
20-ish, yeah. Because 32 is zero.
D0, yeah.
Is freezing, so maybe 20. And one of the things about Australia is a lot of Australia is uninhabitable. And uninhabited. So looking at the statistics, official desert, around 18% of Australia is desert. And about 35% additional to that is considered effectively to be desert because it has such low rainfall.
Yeah.
So, we're up now around 50% of the country would be possibly desert. But in total, about 70% of the Australian mainland is arid, and the definition of that is the arid parts of Australia receive less than 0.5 metre or 500 millimetres of rain a year, and that's about 1.5 foot of rain each year. And there are some areas that are even more arid that get less than 250 millimetres, which is about 1 foot or thereabouts of rain per year. And Australia, one of the things that does surprise some of my American friends is that we do have snow in Australia.
Yeah.
And we do have ski fields in Australia. And one interesting little fact, Australia was once the home of the world's longest chairlift. That's a video for another day that I'm working on another channel, and I might put a brief one on this channel because it's quite an interesting story.
It is.
And it has not been surpassed as the longest. It's no longer in existence, but no one's ever built a chairlift longer than that. So there are ski fields, and I do ski on Sundays sometimes during the ski season because it's only a 5-hour drive to the snow for me, which I find easy to do.
Yeah.
So we do have ski fields and we do have snow. How we talk, our accent. So how often have you heard Americans say, "G'day, mate," trying to imitate our accent, or "I'll throw another shrimp on the barbie."
G'day, mate. Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
And whenever I hear Americans in particular imitate our accent, it's like they're really trying a Cockney accent, an English Cockney accent or a London Cockney accent. And that's not an Australian accent.
Or they're trying to do Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah, and it still doesn't sound right.
No.
So my advice is just don't try an Australian accent. You will fail. It is one of the hardest accents to master.
But if you're going to,
Yes.
you've got to ask a question in every sentence.
You mean the rising inflection at the
Yes,
end?
so in English you'd say Mary had a little lamb. Mm-hmm. In Australian you go, Mary had a little lamb.
That's true. Especially during the 80s and 90s. That was a big thing with young girls.
Yeah.
To have this rising inflection at the end of every sentence.
Hi, my name's Kylie. And guess what? I was at McDonald's and this really cute guy who works there was just staring his guts out at me the whole time.
So I've got this funny anecdote. I once was flying, I was in Melbourne on business and I was flying up from Melbourne overnight on a Friday night. And I was sat next to a guy in his pilot uniform. He was being, I think, ferried to Sydney.
Deadheading.
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 That's when you, he was, for those of you that don't know, that's deadheading, okay? So thank you, Jason. So he was deadheading.
You love that now.
He was deadheading to Sydney from Melbourne, and I was flying home to Sydney. And he was in his pilot's uniform, and he was speaking with an American accent. He was an older dude. And he told me that he was the former chief pilot of Braniff. And because Braniff in America had gone belly up, and he got a job in Australia flying planes. He wasn't the chief pilot of that airline, of Qantas at the time, he was just a pilot. And he was explaining to me, as something that I found out as a result of this conversation, how Americans, now this guy came from Texas, so he had a Texan drawl, and how Americans typically stress the second syllable and Australians stress the first.
Like the British.
Like the British do, exactly. So there is a town a couple of hundred kilometres out of Melbourne, because he was stationed in Melbourne, which is about 130 miles. And he was asking for directions to this town and he was getting blank looks from people. So I'm going to try a bad American accent, so forgive me, because I've told you not to do Australian accents, but I'm going to do an American accent. And he said that he was asking people, can you tell me the way to Bendigo? And Jason's laughing because he knows how it's pronounced. So he was saying Bendigo, and that sounds really Texan to me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know many Texans, but it sounds really Texan. He's stressing Digo instead of Ben. So we would say Bendigo, and he was saying Bendigo. Much like if you look at words like offence and defence. Americans are heavily stressing second syllable. We would never say offence and defence. We would say offence and defence.
That's true.
So, yeah, if you do come to Australia, one of those myths, you know, if you're not understanding what we're saying and we're not understanding what you're saying, maybe it's which syllable you're stressing, because if you're asking for directions to Bendigo, no one's going to know what you're talking about.
But if you're an Australian going to America and you land at JFK and you say, how do you get to Maryland?
Which would be?
Maryland.
Oh, of course.
So it does work both ways.
Or Houston Street in New York. It's Houston.
Houston, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting, isn't it? Oh, my favourite, non-favourite, is that university in America named after the most famous Paris cathedral.
Oh.
I'm sorry, guys. That grinds me. It really does. It's Notre Dame, okay? Not Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
It's Notre Dame.
This is true.
So that's, anyway. So, yeah, that's one of the things. I did do a bus tour around Europe, and when we were rolling into Paris, and a lot of the Americans were going, oh, look, it's Notre Dame. And I'm like, oh, no, it's Notre Dame. It's Notre Dame. So we do have differences in the way we speak. We don't all speak like Crocodile Dundee.
2 beers, all right? One for me, one for me, mate.
Or like Steve Irwin, may he rest in peace.
Have a look at his head. Got a real arrow-shaped head, typical python structure, and he's got bands that come right back from his snout through his eyes along his head.
Or any of those sort of hammed up Australian accents. We ham that up because I think people in the movies want it hammed up.
Yeah, so
not
it's stereotyped.
Yeah, Australians have a unique accent, obviously. But one of the interesting things is that certainly for a while, if not still, Google Maps used an Australian lady for their directions for worldwide usage.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the hill, make a right. Continue straight ahead. At the next intersection, turn left. My name is Karen Jacobson, and I'm known as the only woman men will take directions from. My speaking voice ended up in over 1 billion GPS and smartphone devices giving directions to people around the world.
Because the Australian female neutral accent is a very neutral accent because it actually combines elements from Scottish, Irish, English, and American influences. So it actually covers a lot of bases. And if it's spoken neutrally without a twang, then it's actually one of the easiest accents to understand. So I believe, because people like Apple and Google would know that. Otherwise they wouldn't use it.
And the other thing about Americans is, this is a similar thing, it's very difficult for an American to differentiate between Australian and a New Zealand accent, even though we can hear different.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for Australians to differentiate between a US and a Canadian accent.
Yes.
So, and clearly they know the difference, they can hear it, and we can hear the difference from our Kiwi friends.
Yes.
But it's hard if you're external hearing the intricacies.
That's right. I mean, I always wait to hear for 2 words. And if a Canadian, or if someone says, I'm going out and a boot, I know they're Canadian.
Yeah.
But if they say,
and I wait for the word yes in Australia and New Zealand. Because we say yes here, and in New Zealand it's yes.
6.
6.
Sucks.
Yeah.
New Zealander would say sucks.
Yeah.
We say 6. So our vowels, New Zealanders and Australians, vowels are a little bit interchanged.
Yeah.
Ours are closer to English, and New Zealanders are closer to the Pacific Ocean. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's different.
interesting.
It's different. Yeah. So this is one of the other things. One of the most successful advertising campaigns to get Americans to Australia was with Paul Hogan, who was the Crocodile Dundee guy, and he's a Sydney native. And there's that famous ad where he's looking across the harbour to the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House, and he's standing in front of a barbecue, and he's got what we would call a prawn in these tongs, and he's saying,
I'll slip an extra shrimp on the barbie for you.
No one here says that.
Yeah.
We don't say shrimp, we say prawns. No one says shrimp here, it's always prawns. So if you come to Australia and say, hey,
Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
Today, I cannot wait to show you my favorite shrimp on the barbie recipe.
Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
Teach Marin the shrimp on the barbie.
yeah, don't do it. We don't say shrimp. If anything, we're more likely these days with prawns, we'd probably wok toss them with a bit of Vietnamese fish sauce and some Asian spices and herbs, and and serve it on a bed of rice. That's how we're going to probably have our prawns these days, rather than throwing them on the barbie. We don't really do that by and large. So there's that. G'day, mate. So don't do that. If you don't have an Australian accent, you won't get away with it.
It won't work.
It won't work. You'll probably antagonise us, and we won't be happy about it. And we'll feel like you're making fun of us. I know that Americans don't usually do that. They usually mean it in a very nice way. But you don't want to find out if someone's going to take offence to it, because they could.
But that's an interesting thing about Australian humour or greeting somebody in Americans, because if you're an Australian and you want to get to know somebody, you might well just mock them or take the piss a bit, right? And talk about things. And to a foreigner outside of Australia, if you're not used to that humour, it might be you're being insulted.
Yeah.
And I think in America, if you're in America as an Australian, that's very dangerous in some circumstances.
Yeah.
So I think there's a very strong difference in terms of humour and the 2 levels at which Australians play at, and that can be taken the wrong way.
Yeah, it absolutely can. We do banter, and it can be savage sometimes, but it's not meant that way.
Yeah.
And that's very English, though, isn't it? It sort of comes from an English sort of thing.
And you expect it back in return.
You do.
You give it.
You expected it back
expect
as hard as you give it. And it does catch Americans by surprise, I have to admit, if they get involved in that or they get caught up in that by some Australians who are trying to be friendly and trying to be funny. So
they get wound up.
They do get wound. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's understandable if you're in someone else's territory and sounds like they're insulting you when you're not expecting it. So expect to be insulted, but they're not trying to. So there's that. We tend to truncate a lot of words.
Yes.
What are you doing this arvo?
That's right.
Which is, what are you doing this afternoon? Arvo.
Absolutely right.
And there's words like that.
Well, nouns like musician, muso, journalist, journo.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And that does come from the British influence.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And it's probably more evident in Melbourne than it is in Sydney. Words like footy, which is for football. Those kind of words, Melbournians are really into truncating more than we would in Sydney, for example. So there's a bit of a difference in there. So one of the other key differences, and I found Americans poking fun at us by imitating us, is we are non-rhotic, and Americans, by and large, with the exception of Bostonians, are non-rhotic. So the difference is R's and T's. So it's very, the Irish and the Scottish, so the Gaelic British, are rhotic, heavily rhotic. They pronounce their R's and their T's. And it became very favourable in Victorian England to become rhotic. So the R's and T's are very soft, if not pronounced at all. I'll give you an example. Could I have a glass of water? As opposed to an American who would say, could I have a, I'll say it with a whole American thing, can I have a glass of water? The water. Very. Now, I'm overstressing that, so please don't be offended. Just to make the point. We would say water, and Americans would say water. So there's a lot more articulation in the mouth, and we're just like rolling it out there. We're saying these words, and we do drop the R's, and we drop the T's. So water would be W-A-D-A-H, water, right, if you want to spell it out, as opposed to every single letter. So the American accent, from what I'd read, had taken that from older English, pre-Victorian era, and the Scottish and Irish influence. But in Boston, because there were so many English people, they're very non-rhotic.
Yeah.
So, and Massachusetts, very non-rhotic in that respect. So if you do come here and you don't understand us, that's where I've found a number of Americans have not understood what I've said, is because of the rhoticity.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, I like, and when I can remember being in Disneyland once with my wife, and I said, I was looking at the menu and it had starter at the top, and I said to the waitress, who in America is called a server, we call them waitresses or waiters. I said, for the starter, I'll have, and she said, like, what? And I'm like, for the starter, I'll have, and she said, what's a starter?
Yeah.
So I don't know if she was making fun of me or she just had no idea what I was saying, but starter as opposed to starter. So
yeah,
maybe I can understand that, but I did hear a lot of Australian accents in Disneyland, so maybe one of those things. So that's one thing that I noticed. Rhoticity actually is probably the biggest thing that catches people out when Americans are here for me. What do you think of that? Have you ever come across that?
Absolutely true what you're saying. You hear it all over, and it just takes a while to adjust, doesn't it? Because you might, you're hearing English, but not everything makes sense. And then maybe after about 48 hours here, you adjust to the
and I find the same when I've been to America. I have to consciously add T's and R's into my words to be a bit more understood.
And I don't tend, when I first go back to America, I tend not to roll my words together, because the water stuff and all that allows you to flow words, whereas you need to sort of separate them a bit more.
Kangaroos everywhere. Have you ever seen a kangaroo in Sydney? Apart from the zoo?
No.
I saw one a while ago.
Did? What?
My family, my wife and my two kids, we took a train trip to southern New South Wales. And it was a day trip. So we went out for lunch and we thought, let's just catch a train for the hell of it, out into the country and then back again. And on our way back, outer suburb of Sydney. Now, I was filming all of this, but I happened to turn my camera off just at the moment that we're on the outer suburbs of Sydney. And what do I see right beside the train? We're moving along at speed, and we're in the outer burbs, and there's a road right next to the train line, and right in the middle of the road is a mum kangaroo with a young joey, and they're both hopping, keeping up with the train as we're going along, and I'm like, can you believe this? And I had another time in Canberra, the capital city of Australia, which is 300 kilometres, 210 miles south of Sydney. Right in the middle of Canberra, there was a kangaroo in the middle of the road. Can you believe it? Now, that's not common, but if you drive anywhere out of any city, you are going to find lots of roadkill.
Yeah.
And if you're driving at dawn or dusk, you're going to see a lot of kangaroos alive.
Yeah.
There are
be
lots.
careful.
Yeah, they outnumber us quite a bit. There's just under 30 million Australians. There's at least double that, possibly more kangaroos, and they're spread out all over Australia. One of the things that you don't want to do with kangaroos is think that they're cuddly and friendly, because the big males in particular are very territorial, and it's called a mob of kangaroos when you see a whole lot of kangaroos together. And you have seen some videos where people go and think, oh, this is a kangaroo, they're cute, they're cuddly and whatever. And the male will probably try and kill you. They're big enough, and they have this habit of fighting. So they put the paws on your shoulder. If they're pissed off, their head will go back. Their tail's going to balance them, and their hind legs will thrust at your belly, and that could be really, really deadly.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be messing with kangaroos in the wild. Just observe our wildlife, and you will see. I guarantee, if you drive the country, you're going to see kangaroos, dead or alive. They're everywhere. So that's that. America. How would I describe Australia? How would you describe the differences between Australian and American culture? I'm going to lead into this. I'm going to say, like, there's a lot of commonality. Certainly Australia was colonised by the English in particular. I'm not going to say the British, more the English. There's that stronger English influence here. But we have a lot of American pop culture, movies, music, but we also have a lot of European influence.
Yeah.
So we're sort of halfway between. That's my impression, halfway between the two. What would
I
you
think
say?
that's accurate. I always thought of it, particularly Sydney, for example, but Australia is a blend between the US and the UK, and just what I generally call the good bits in both. So I find, like in Sydney, I find this is a very clean, friendlier London, whereas London tends to be dirtier and people maybe are less happy and stuff. And I think, it's got that good aspect of London. And I think it has the kind of laid-back influence of America, where, we do business here and in commerce, but we're not as serious as the New Yorkers or the Chicago people doing business. We do business, but it's a lot more relaxed atmosphere.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, I do find that. And it's not like our productivity is a whole lot less than America, but we do have much more of a work to live rather than live to work attitude. I know that I've had, when my wife and I were in Europe once, and it was when we were on the bus tour. We did a bus tour many years ago when we first got married around Europe. And we have this thing called long service leave in Australia. And so if you work for an employer for 10 years, you get effectively 2 months paid leave after that 10-year period. And for every 5 years after that, so when you hit 15 years or 20 years, you get another month added. So the way that works is we also have a minimum of 4 weeks paid annual leave from day one.
Yeah.
You don't have a qualifying period. I mean, you obviously have to work a year to have your 4 months. You don't start with 4 weeks. So, which is quite a shock for many Americans, professionals, business people. And I've heard that the people say to me, like, how can your country afford that? Well, the simple answer is we do. It's not actually that hard. And the other simple part about that is, I would actually say to you, do you really think that's a bad thing?
It's productive. It can be productive in terms of refreshing you as well. When I graduated in the States and finished up at university, I got a job in America with a company called Electronic Data Systems, EDS. For the first year, there's no annual leave, no holidays. And so holidays begin the second year, and 10 days is the allocated amount. And the other difference, Andrew, here is that we have more national holidays than America. America tends to have the least number of national holidays. Yes, there's Thanksgiving and Columbus Day, but we have more holidays. We've got the King's birthday, and we've got, time around
Anzac Day.
Anzac, and Australia Day and everything.
We have an average of 9 to 12 days a year on top of annual leave. Exactly. So, and we have sick leave as well.
Yeah, we have sick leave.
So, and it's also illegal to sack someone for being sick.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of worker protections, which is good. Unions are, I wouldn't say overly strong, but they have a solid place in Australian culture. So I have dealt with American business people who have come here to run a local branch of a company, and they've just not understood the culture. They think we're, lazy, or what is it? You want another holiday? How dare you take a holiday? You're in the middle of doing something. Well, that's our culture. That's what we do. And like Jason said, sometimes you actually need that for productivity. So it's part of our culture. I remember that that guy I was actually alluding to when he was explained about the long service leave. And he said to this person, I wasn't talking to him, someone else was telling him that she was on long service leave on this bus tour. And she explained it to him, and he said, and you've got a job to go back to. And, and it was condescending. It's like, yes, and it's a protected job. You can't sack someone for taking leave. Incredible. You can actually deny them leave at that time, like if everyone's on holidays.
Yeah.
Or you can also, if there's a Christmas shutdown between Christmas and New Year, you can actually say to all your employees, you're all on leave and you're taking a week's leave. You can do that. So there's a flexibility for employers, but you can't say, no, you can't take your leave.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. And sick leave as well. So that is a difference. And if you are coming here for business, that's what you have to expect. And we all love it, and we think it's great. And I have to admit, I feel sorry for Americans that think it's not great.
Yeah.
You should try it. It's very good. And if you have a look at videos from Americans who've lived in other parts of the world, like in Australia or Europe, where they get all these sorts of benefits, we're not alone like that. This is pretty typical for OECD countries.
Yeah, it is.
With the exception of America.
Yeah.
Americans.
Yeah, it is an outlier in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I heard what somebody once say to me, it's very few people that on their deathbed would wish that they spent more time at the office.
Yeah.
And I always had that go through my head, like, actually.
You're right.
Yeah, you need to. So these are myths, or maybe not myths, maybe something that most Americans aren't aware of. I think most Americans, from my way of thinking, probably are living in a bit of a bubble. It's an American bubble where this is what we're used to. We don't really know what goes on in the rest of the world, and we just assume that everything's the same as us, and if it's different to us, well, it's different,
Well, that makes another interesting point, that I find that Australians as a culture travel. They go overseas, right? So most Australians have passports. Most Australians have been overseas and lived overseas, right? It's expected you do your kind of pilgrimage to the UK, spend some work time there, or wherever you come from. In America, much fewer people have passports, and they've spent a lot of their life, if not all their life, in America. And so they don't really see international travel that much. There are exceptions, of course. There's a lot of business overseas and happening. But as a percentage, less Americans travel overseas to actually experience the cultures.
And that's the thing about business travellers. They're also in a cocoon. Like when I've had American visitors come to Australia, when I've gone as a visitor to other countries as a business, you are in a bit of a cocoon. You're there to do business. You're not there to sightsee and go to Disneyland.
Yeah.
So Americans might come here and it's business. I've only got a small period of time. So it will look probably like they're used to back home, because we are accommodating that.
The Marriott Hotel here is the same as the Marriott Hotel in America.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
You stay,
yeah, exactly. So
steakhouse is a steakhouse.
Yeah, and one of those interesting things that you were just saying that are a little bit flipped. So Australians tend to travel heaps, as you said. Americans typically don't. But here's an interesting difference. If, say, you are studying at university and you're Australian, you're more likely to live at home in your home city with your parents than to leave school and then go to another part of the country. And that's a big American thing.
It is.
Very, very few people would do that in Australia. I know my daughters have some friends who might have gone to Melbourne University and they're living, they've got some accommodation in Melbourne. But that's the exception, not the rule. My daughters both still live at home, and one's at university, the other one's left university, but it's like living at home. That's the standard here.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So Jason, what about you? What myths or differences do you see?
I think there's a big difference in Australia and America about food. So, and it comes down to what each country is really good at. In America, you can get any food you like, because distribution is fantastic in the States. Logistics is brilliant and the supply chain's amazing. So if you want bananas on the East Coast or apricots on the West Coast, they will be there. Right? But because distribution is good, it doesn't mean that the food tastes as fresh as it does in Australia, where our distribution might not be at that standard, but we have fresh produce.
And we're more likely to be seasonal.
And we're more likely to be seasonal, right? And we'll have less selection because our distribution is good, but we're guaranteed it's fresh.
Yeah.
And so tasting it is very different. And the other main taste, apart from this distribution and local produce, is I always taste so much sugar in American products and less sugar in Australian products.
Yeah.
Even in the bread. That's the first thing I notice when I go to America. There tastes like there's sugar in the bread. And it seems like there's a sweetener in a lot of foods, which is artificial.
Salt?
And salt, yeah. Than what we would do in Australia.
And portion sizes?
Portion sizes are hugely different.
So I call that the 4 2s.
Okay.
Too much salt, too much sugar, too much fat, and too much. So that's my description. I mean, look, I've had some great meals in America. Don't get me wrong.
They're good, yeah.
But when you go to the not great meals, it's the 4 2s.
Yeah.
For me. Whereas in Australia, I think we've got a lot more authentic foreign food. And that comes from traveling so much that Australians are expecting an authentic experience because they know what it's like. They know what Thai food is like. They know what Italian food is like. We know what French food is like because we've been there. We're not having an anglicised or an Australianised version of those foods.
And there's a reason for that. So America would view themselves as the land of the immigrants, right? A lot of different cultures, and that's absolutely correct. But Australia is the most culturally diverse country in the world if you measure it by where you were born and where your parents were born.
Right.
And if you look at that measure by a country mile, Australia is the most multicultural country in the world. And when you talk about these foods, when you talk about Italian food and authentic, it's because we have those communities here. And we have the largest Greek community in Melbourne outside of...
Athens.
Yeah.
Outside of Greece. Yeah, Athens is number 1 and Melbourne's number 2.
We're one of the largest Lebanese communities here. I mean, it's incredible what we have in this country.
So where were your parents born?
My parents were born overseas, one in America, one in England.
And my father was born in Slovenia and my mother was born in Italy.
And I was born in America and you were born?
I was born in Sydney.
Yeah.
But my wife was born in F&Q.
F&Q?
F&Q. Far North Queensland, F&Q.
There's another difference between Australians and Americans.
Yeah.
He's not swearing.
No, F&Q, that's Far North Queensland. That's like another country. Well, for Sydney siders, I think I've just upset a whole lot of Queenslanders.
You have. Hate mail coming your way.
So, if we might wrap it up here.
I think so.
So, thanks for listening. If you've got any comments, if you're American and you agree or disagree with us, or there's stuff we haven't covered, put it in there. If we've insulted you, too bad. So,
and that's it for another edition of Nifty Notions. I'm Jason.
I'm Andrew. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't been insulted. Or if you have been and you want more insults, just give us a subscription. Something like that. We'll see you next time. Bye. Fuck it.